Well, welcome to the Alternative Balance webinar series. This is a three-part series where we are going to talk about different aspects of liability insurance for wellness professionals. And the first part is going to be, should I get insurance? And what does wellness professional mean anyway? So I am your host, Barbara Zabawa. I am a wellness lawyer, and I have been connected with Alternative Balance for a number of years because a lot of my clients who run the gamut from wellness coaches to licensed alternative healthcare providers to people who are just wondering about the wellness industry in various capacities ask about, should I get insurance? And Alternative Balance has always been a resource that I point them towards. So I'm so excited to be joined by an Alternative Balance team of Miriam and Lindsey, who I'll let introduce themselves before we jump into our questions.
Yeah, so thanks for having us on, Barbara. I think this is a really good webinar series for us to do. My name is Miriam Ball, and I'm the CIO over at Alternative Balance, and I also manage the tech team. And I've been working in the insurance industry for close to 20 years now. And I think that it's very interesting, but understand that it can be very dry. So we'll try and spruce things up a bit and help the wellness industry out today.
Yeah, really appreciate the time. And my name is Lindsey. I work with Nexo Insurance. We are an insurance agency out of California, and we focus primarily on fitness and wellness. I'm the director of client services, and I've been in insurance for about 8 years. And like Miriam said, we'll try to keep it in layman's terms so we don't bore you all to death.
Well, thank you, Miriam and Lindsey. I'm really excited to have this discussion with you about, should I get insurance and what does wellness professional mean anyway? Because these are important questions. And of course, as a lawyer who practices in this space, I, of course, always encourage my clients to get insurance. But Lindsey, from your perspective, why do wellness professionals need insurance? Liability insurance, that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's really important to protect yourself and your business. If something happens, and accidents always do happen, it's unfortunately not a matter of if, but when a claim was likely to occur, you have to be able to protect yourself. And more often than not, those suits that may be brought against you, whether that be, a general liability claim like a slip and fall, or a professional liability claim for any professional advice that you give to your clients, if that's not covered by your insurance, you're gonna have to pay for it out of pocket. And litigation costs are only getting higher and higher, and litigation is becoming more and more frequent. So this is just a, real surefire way to protect both yourself as well as your business, because out-of-pocket costs can easily take someone under.
Yes, litigate. I can affirm that that is true. Lawyers are expensive.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially when you are involved in a lawsuit, then the bills can
Mhm.
increase exponentially. So I get this question a lot. What is the risk essentially, Lindsey? I mean, what kinds of things can wellness professionals be sued for when they're conducting, say, online classes, which is what most wellness professionals are doing. They're doing their work virtually online. And so what kinds of claims could be made against them, legal claims?
Yeah, you think, oh, well, I'm just coaching people online, they're not with me, I'm not with them, so what's the risk? Well, depending on what you may say and what professional advice you may give somebody via that Zoom call, you may still be held liable for that. You're still coaching these individuals and telling them, hey, you should take this herbal supplement to help alleviate this particular ailment. If they have an allergic reaction or if something goes wrong, you could easily be held liable for that, regardless of whether or not you're seeing them in person. So just as an example of something that most alternative balance professionals are going to be doing, if they do Zoom calls, they're going to be giving some sort of professional advice. So that's the number one example that I would provide.
And yeah, so you're holding yourself out there as an expert
Mhm.
in something, something in wellness. And so you need to make sure that just in case something bad happens, you're covered. You don't have to pay those legal
Yeah.
expenses, like we talked about.
And
Uh,
it
oh, go
and
ahead,
it
Lindsay.
and it could just be easily something that you accidentally misspoke, right? We're all humans. We make mistakes. And if you accidentally, tell someone to do something, but you meant something else, or maybe that was your best guess or your best advice that you had and it still went wrong, and someone gets upset, you're more than likely on the hook for that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, it's reassuring. That's why they call
yeah.
it insurance, right?
Yeah.
So, so Miriam, let's move to the other pressing question that I prefaced this session with was, what does wellness professional mean anyway, at least in terms of alternative balance insurance? Like, who are the types of professionals that you would offer insurance to?
Yeah, alternative balance's definition of a wellness professional is kind of represented in our business name. It's people who practice in the alternative therapy space, whether it be a personal trainer, a fitness professional, or someone who practices Ayurveda or nutritional consulting. These are things that are non-medical. They don't require a medical license that would be issued by a state medical board. They're not things that are restricted by law to certain medical licenses, but they are things that have to do with a person's entire well-being and wellness. So it could be anything from spiritual services to nutritional services, mind, body, and soul wellness kind of services. And so alternative therapies is kind of another way to say wellness professional, and that's really what we're talking about here.
And so you don't insure anyone who does have a license, who's practicing under a state issued license, say a physician or a nurse. Is Alternative Balance offer professional liability insurance to those individuals?
We only offer liability insurance to those individuals if they are practicing an alternative therapy. So if you are a registered nurse, for example, and you work as a registered nurse most of the time, but you also practice massage therapy, we can provide coverage for the massage therapy portion. And a lot of massage therapists, they have to also get a license from the state, but it is considered an alternative non-medical therapy. So that would fall under our category. So even if you do have a medical license, if you're practicing other alternative therapies, we would still be able to cover that portion of your work.
Right. And for your licensed portion of your work, you need to get insurance through another carrier that insures the licensed profession that you are.
Correct. Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, medical malpractice would be
Mhm.
something that those individuals would need. And a
Yeah,
lot of medical malpractice policies exclude things like massage therapy and other alternative therapies. They also would exclude personal training or fitness or any sort of alternative wellness service is going to be excluded by most medical malpractice policies. So there is a gap there that people who are medical providers should be aware of.
right. Yeah, that's really good to know, because your traditional malpractice insurance that you have through your licensed work will not cover you if you have a claim that relating to your unlicensed work, your wellness work. So
Yeah.
it's good to know.
Yeah.
So Lindsay, back to you. Why is it important to choose an insurance plan that focuses on wellness and holistic health and not just small business insurance? I have a lot of clients who, start with, they think they're opening up a small business. So they start with a small business lawyer, for example. They go to their local business lawyer in town and say, hey, I'm going to start up this Ayurvedic practice or this health coaching practice. And typically, from my point of view, from the legal point of view, the small business lawyer has no clue what they're trying to do, from the services that they want to provide. And that frustrates them, which is how they ended up end up coming to me. It's like, well, finally somebody who understands what I'm trying to do. On the flip side with the insurance, why would you want a specialized holistic health, wellness type and policy as opposed to just a small business policy?
No, what an amazing question. Mainly because the verbiage of the policy is super important. So before I ever got into insurance, I was like, oh, well, if I were to look at two insurance policies, great. Well, this one has $1 million limits, and so does this one. So they must be the exact same. And that is unfortunately not the case at all whatsoever. And you really have to dig into the meat and potatoes of the policy, which is typically in legal jargon. So most people do not want to look into their policy super thoroughly. It's also often a 60 to 100-page document, and no one really wants to look at that. I can't say that I blame them at all whatsoever. But if there is a exclusion within the policy. An exclusion means that if that incident or that type of incident occurs, coverage will not extend and your policy will not help you at all whatsoever. If there is some sort of wellness or fitness related exclusion in there, you are out of luck if you have a claim, right? So if you're looking to get an insurance policy, your best bet is to go to an insurance broker that specializes within your industry and offers a policy from an insurance carrier that also specializes in your industry. The alternative balance policy was specifically designed for fitness, wellness, health, and beauty professionals in mind. So we made sure that the exclusions within the policy were going to offer the broadest coverage that we could possibly give them and cover as much as we possibly could. And so looking at the exclusions within that policy is so unbelievably important, because if you don't know what you're not covered for and you're accidentally doing those things, it's going to be a rough payday if something happens. And, also reading those policies isn't fun, and I don't blame anyone who doesn't necessarily, but it's super important. So reach out to some resources that you may have. Go to a local insurance broker, have them read your policy, ask them what is not covered in this. Reach out to us at Alternative Balance. We're happy to tell you, right? We want to be as transparent as possible so that you are as educated as possible.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And I mean, I can't emphasize enough how important it is. It's not only what is covered, it's what is not covered.
Yes.
So, in the law, it's not just what the law says, it's what it doesn't say. That's also important. And that's why you need specialists, because they know what they, it's like, you don't know what you don't know. Well, specialists know what you should know. So it's really important. Thank you, Lindsey. So Miriam,
before we get to the next question, can I jump in real quick about that also? So the exclusions are super important, as Lindsey described. But also, I think a lot of small business insurance policies that are geared to small business, they cover things that most alternative balance members don't need. So if you were to go to somebody and say, well, I'm a sole proprietor, I have this small business, they're going to say, okay, we'll get you a business owner's policy. Or if you're doing your own research online and you say, I want a business owner's policy because I'm a business owner. If you go and look at that, a business owner's policy, or BOP as they're commonly referred to, doesn't cover professional liability. It covers the building, your physical location. It covers some business personal property, maybe not all of it, and general liability. And so you're going to have a lot of gaps there as an individual professional practicing wellness services, because none of that is really designed for what you're doing. So yeah, it says small business, it says business owners, but that's not really what a wellness professional needs. So
especially one that's doing their business online.
Right, exactly. If you're
Which
doing your
is
business
what
online,
most of them are doing.
yeah,
So.
either online services, or if you're a personal trainer and you go to clients' homes, most business owners policies or small business policies aren't going to cover you there.
Yeah.
A lot of policies require that you list a specific location. And if you're not working at that location, then you're not covered. So that's another one of those exclusions that would be important for somebody to understand about their policy, and coming to a place or, any association that is focused around a specific industry, they're going to have done that research for you. And so it makes it really easy. You don't have to become an insurance specialist to find the right coverage. You just have to find the people who do know
Right,
and ask them and talk to them about it. So,
right.
yeah.
Well, that's a good segue into the last question for this segment of the series, which is for Miriam. Does alternative balance require health and wellness solo practitioners to have an LLC? I get this question all the time. People have this mistaken belief that you must have a legal entity in order to be in business. You must have an LLC or something, and some other kind of business structure. And that is not the case, by the way. There's no legal requirement to have a legal entity formed. That's a good idea, and that might be another podcast as to why, but for the purposes of this webinar, do you require your insureds to have an LLC?
We do not. We have a lot of members. In fact, I think most of our members are sole proprietors or just individuals working in the wellness space. And if they have an LLC, great. We have that option on our application where you can tell us what type of entity you are, whether you're a corporation, LLC, S Corp, or whatever it may be. But that's just extra protection financially for you that as a practitioner you should look into. But we at Alternative Balance do not require that you have an LLC or other legal entity set up for your work.
Well, that is very useful information. So I think the bottom line is, yes, obviously, very good idea to have insurance, and Alternative Balance is an excellent resource for the types of wellness services that are all kinds of wellness services that are out there to get that insurance. So that wraps up part one. In part two, we're going to talk about what kinds of insurance should wellness professionals get. So stay tuned.